White House Director of Communications Stephen Chung wrote, quote, "Construction has always been part of the evolution of the White House. Losers who are quick to criticize need to stop their pearl clutching and understand the building needs to be modernized. Otherwise, you're just living in the past, dude." No, dude.
No, dude. Nicole Wallace, she used to pretend to be a Republican, kind of like Joe Scarborough. Now on MSLSD 13, she just says crazy things, just flowing out of her mouth like an ooze. On a very good Tuesday, welcome back once again. We continue to be reached at 888-630-9625. You know, there's a ballroom being built adjacent to the White House, on the White House grounds. It'll be used by presidents of the United States, hopefully for centuries to come, if the Democrats don't burn the whole city to the ground, which they could be on the brink of doing at any given moment. But let me share with you a couple of items here. The Washington Post, and this has caused a great deal of upheaval. The Washington Post, the left-wing newspaper owned by the billionaire Jeff Bezos, a lifelong Democrat, and all of that. He bought a museum in Washington to convert to his house because he wanted to be close to President Hillary Clinton. That was pretty funny because she never became president, and she never will because she's so awful. Isn't that amazing? But there are headlines all over the place now. The Washington Post headline, which is kind of amusing, in defense of the White House ballroom. That's from day before yesterday in the Washington Post. And this is this piece that they put, an opinion piece in the Washington Post saying, hey, the ballroom might be pretty good. And besides, the Obama people and the Biden people, they really wanted a big ballroom. And when President Trump offered to build one while Barack Obama was living in there, $100 million of his own money, they scoffed at him and spit at him and called him names and they mocked him. And then he won the presidency, and he's going to flush the entire Obama presidency down the toilet where it should be. But never mind that. And the Washington Post, in defense of the White House ballroom. That's the headline from the Washington Post. Isn't that kind of ironic? Fox News headline, Washington Post editorial board defends Trump's White House ballroom. Oh, no. The Hill, left-wing paper in Washington, D.C., the headline is, Washington Post editorial board praises Trump's demolition of East Wing. That's not actually what they're praising, but you had to tear down the East Wing to make room for the new ballroom, a big, beautiful ballroom. And the editorial board of the Washington Post, again, in defense of the White House ballroom, Donald Trump versus the NIMBYs. The NIMBYs, you know, the not in my backyard people, NIMBYs, right? And the teardown of the White House's East Wing this week is a Rorschach test. Many see the rubble as a metaphor for President Donald Trump's reckless disregard of norms and the rule of law. It's right. It's illegal and it's not normal. Unless you're a Democrat, then you can do whatever you want to the White House, as so many Democrats did from Harry Truman to Barack Obama. But never mind that. And then rule of law. A reflection of his willingness to bulldoze history. That's kind of ironic given the fact that you guys attacked the White House for 3 days, set fire to the Church of the Presidents, attacked the Reagan Center across the street from the White House, set fire to the only building in Lafayette Park. You attacked the White House to the point where the president and the first lady and the first son had to be evacuated to the underground bunker, which is underneath the East Wing, by the way. But never mind that. Bulldoze history and a temple to a second Gilded Age paid for by corporate donors. You mean not by taxpayers, but funded with private dollars? That's kind of a great idea. High five, Trump. Others see what they love about Trump. A lifelong builder, boldly pursuing a grand vision, a change agent, unafraid to decisively take on the status quo, and a developer slashing through red tape that would stymie any normal politician. It would stymie, you know, like the character on Spanky in our gang. It would stymie any normal politician. And that's true, of course, because they'd tie you up for years and years and years to see whether you could move that copper pipe 5 inches or not. And Trump said, yeah, we're not doing that. So in classic Trump fashion, the Washington Post typed on behalf of their party, the Democrat Party, the president is pursuing a reasonable idea in the most jarring manner possible. Privately, many alumni, listen to this now, of the Biden and Obama White Houses acknowledge the long overdue need for an event space like what Trump is creating. This is the left-wing Washington Post. They're cringing while they're typing this, right? It is absurd that tents need to be erected on the South Lawn for state dinners, and VIPs are forced to use porta potties. And it's true. The event spaces inside the White House, a very old house, are not gigantic. And again, I talked about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, for example, that's held at the International Ballroom at the Washington Hilton Hotel on Connecticut Avenue every year, or normally at least. And how you don't have the space at the White House. And President Trump, he's been all over the world to Saudi Arabia and palaces in England and in France, where the national leaders hold their events in these grand spaces. And President Trump said, we need that. We're the United States. We're the coolest country on the face of the earth. We should have a place for the president to use for big events when the king of Saudi Arabia is visiting and when they're signing a peace deal. And you have an event space instead of doing it on the South Lawn in the drizzling rain. And here he is bringing us into the if not the 21st century, at least the 20th century, creating a White House space that's a ballroom. But never mind that. And it's true, they set up these white plastic tents that you get for your daughter's wedding and things like that, right? And they have porta potties. So, here's the emir of the UAE, and you point him to that green fiberglass porta potty next to a tree on the South Lawn. Sure, that's a good thing. So the president is improving the White House in ways that will be loved and admired for decades to come. And the Washington Post, privately, they won't use any names. Everything's anonymous, especially the truth. Nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. But privately, many, that's more than one, alumni of the Biden and Obama White Houses acknowledge the long overdue need for an event space, just like what President Trump is creating, and how absurd it is that we put up white plastic tents and porta potties for events at the White House. Now, that's kind of a big deal, I've got to say. The state dining room seats 140 people. The East Room seats about 200 people. Trump says the ballroom at the center of his 90,000-square-foot addition will accommodate 999 guests. So that's at least 5 times what can currently be accommodated at an event at the White House. But never mind that. And the Democrats, they're not on the side of progress. They're always anti-progress, usually in the name of progress, which is no sense of irony, and they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. See? Many homeowners have become red-pilled by their struggle to navigate the slow as molasses maze of government bureaucracy when they're trying to make even modest renovations, such as adding a deck. I guess somebody at the Washington Post had trouble adding a deck. D.C. alone has 70 historic districts and other random entities that can throw sand in the gears. And that's what the Washington Post is in support of. That's what they like. Because it's become far too difficult to build anything in America, prominent Democrats have become vocal this year in calling out their party's lawyerly obsession with process, which combined with a not-in-my-backyard mentality has prevented a place such as California from building high-speed rail that its voters approved by referendum in 2008. How many years ago is that? 2008, 2018, that's 27 years ago. Is that what it is? No, 17 years ago. 17. I always do my gazintas wrong live on the radio. But yeah, 2018, then 2020. So that's 17 years ago they approved it, and it's gone nowhere because the short explanation is Democrats. Now, something funny occurred after this. This is kind of funny all by itself. But, porta potties for the king. Yeah, that's that green fiberglass thing over there. Ignore the tub of stuff down at the bottom because, Your Majesty, but that's for you over there. That's good. All right, now, here is the left-wing radical extremist and award-winning mainstream media member. And his name, what's his name? We all know his name. We miss him from CNN, don't we? This is pretty amazing stuff. It is Jim Acosta, formerly of CNN. Nobody knows what he's posting videos of himself. Are they like that, with the Zoom call with Jeffrey Tubout? I hope not. But here's the headline from the left-wing Mediaite on Jim Acosta. Quote, "Not today, Satan." Now, they're the party of the after-school Satan clubs, right? But he's posting things. Outraged, Jim Acosta blasts Trump demolition as he cancels Washington Post live on the air. He's not live on the air anywhere. It's a video posted on the internet, but they lie even in their headlines. Political host and independent journalist. Michael, you're an independent journalist, so I just want you to know that. Jim Acosta invoked the Prince of Darkness. That's what they call Satan because they were all part of the after-school Satan club when they were in school. As he canceled his Washington Post subscription over an op-ed praising Donald Trump and his ongoing demolition project to erect a new ballroom. They just wanted to use the word erect. I know they did. And it's not a demolition project. It's a construction project, which very often requires a bit of cleanup before you start building the new structure that will be there for centuries to come. Since taking office for a second time, Trump has overseen massive changes to the physical features of the White House, including a gold-drenched Oval Office overhaul. That's an overstatement, of course. A paved-over lawn in the Rose Garden. You mean the Rose Garden where they always put out platforms and tables and chairs when there were events being held there. And he decided to make it more user-friendly. So he's done that, and it looks great. And they've used it for a number of events. It's wonderful. And now a major demolition of the entire East Wing, built in the 1940s, to make way for a massive ballroom, which the Washington Post loves. Amid outrage from critics. Critics remain critical, as they so often do. The Washington Post editorial board published an op-ed praising the project, even as Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos was revealed as being on a long list of donors funding the project. You mean so the taxpayers are not being stuck with the bill President Trump got rich people to pay for it? Isn't that great? So no tax increase. That's like, price gouging. But Jim Acosta, he posted a video of himself. He's so upset. We recently, I told you, canceled our Washington Post as well because they stopped delivering to our door. And they never even, we talked about this just over the weekend, they never even sent us an email saying, hey, why did you cancel the Washington Post? But here's Abilio. His real name is Abilio. He's ashamed of his Cuban heritage.
To me, it is sacrilege. The Washington Post to say anything.
It's a religion.
In defense of the president of the United States unilaterally knocking down part of the White House.
He didn't do it himself.
It is sacrilege.
It's
an embarrassment to the Washington Post. It is an absolute catastrophe of an editorial board column. And I've always subscribed to the Washington Post.
He always has.
I can't think for the life of me of a situation where I do not subscribe to the Washington Post.
Right. But now he's unsubscribed to the Washington Post.
I am canceling my subscription to the Washington Post.
Now they're going bankrupt.
I'm just sick over what he has done. You just spent a bunch of money and put in the newspaper that it's okay for Donald Trump to knock down the White House. Go f*** yourselves.
Oh, see,
that's what I have to say.
That's what
he
has
to say. So right
say.
there, continue to cancel. Would you like to secure a rate of $60 for 1 year of core content? Oh, they're lowering my price. They'll lower my price by half. We'd hate to see you go. Keep your subscription at a special rate. No thanks. Cancel my subscription.
We never got that email from the Washington Post. Hey, everybody, let's respond, shall we? Let's all respond together to Jim Acosta. Hey, Jim Acosta, go beep yourself. How about that? Because all of America agrees with sanity and not you with your mental illness. And your was he dressed like a lady in this video? He was kind of dressed like a lady, a little bit like a lady. You know that the big wireless company, the cellular telephone companies, have been pulling one over on all of us for a long, long time. That's why it's time to make the switch to consumer cellular. Listen, I made the switch. I get the same fast, reliable, nationwide coverage, same towers, same transmitters, same connectivity, but without the big wireless company cost every month. And while it's great to save money, it's not just about that. It's also about not being used and abused by the company that you pay for a service every month. Do you have any idea how much data you use every month? I have no idea personally myself. Most people who are 50 years old and older use less than 8 gigs, very little data every month. And big wireless companies, they shove us all into an unlimited data plan because they need to redistribute our wealth, our payments, to pay for young people, 19-year-olds, that are using 10 times as much data as you're using. And if you're not using all that data, guess what? You are the one being used and abused by your cell phone company. When you've had enough of that, make the switch like I did to Consumer Cellular. They set me up. They'll set you up with a service and with a phone. It's really easy to make the switch. You call them on the phone. You talk to an actual human being who's based right here in the United States, not a robot floating over Botswana. And the people are actually helpful right here in the United States. It'll take you about 20 minutes to make the switch, and you'll save money every month. You won't notice the difference in coverage, so give them a call today and make that change. Call 800-760-0702. 800-760-0702. Yes, sir. Yeah, Jim Acosta, Abilio. And there he is cursing, and he's looking mentally ill in the video, which I guess is natural and to be expected. But he canceled. He's angry. And it's funny, we never got an email saying, hey, we'll cut the amount of money we're charging you. We'll make it better for you. We never got that. I guess they thought I was not Abilio.
Maybe you can earn my money back. Maybe you can earn my business back. But not today, Satan. Not today, Bezos.
The Democrat Party is a mentally ill group of dangerous, violent, and low IQ people. Low IQ people. We know that. All right, we have very little time, but let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Scott, calling from Salina, Kansas. Scott, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Hey,
Scott.
Hope everything's hunky-dory in you guys' world.
You bet.
It cracks me up. I think it was 2010. Obama spent almost $400 million of taxpayer money to get, the only thing I ever heard was a basketball court.
Right. And it was outdoors.
Gee whiz. Gee whiz. Who's your general contractor? My goodness.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day. CNN was going on and on about it with their girl, Suzanne Malveaux, and she was walking around the White House. Yeah, $376 million renovation, and all they did was convert a tennis court to an outdoor basketball court so Obama could embarrass himself by missing shot after shot.
The jackhammering, the dust, the confusion, the noise of all places to do construction is happening right here, the front lawn of the White House.
It's a 4-year renovation project. Estimated cost, $376 million.
Much more than the ballroom will cost, but taxpayers are not being stuck with the bill for the ballroom. People are generously contributing money for the construction of the ballroom. Much better that way. That was Suzanne Malveaux. Wasn't she having an affair with the lady who was the White House press secretary? Is that, or am I confusing because there are so many of them, the Democrat Party and all that. Also, anybody remember the Democrats were fine when the mayor of College Park, Maryland, who is an LGBTQ man, he was arrested on child porn charges, right? Child porn charges. And he was sentenced, I believe, to 30 years in prison. He accepted a plea deal because his child porn was so crazy that he accepted a plea deal, good deal, 30 years in prison for him. Isn't that amazing? And this is a guy who then pictures of him on the south lawn of the White House, the Joe Biden White House, showed up again and again. Turns out he's a close personal friend of Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary. That's why he's the trans secretary, not defense or the Department of War, but the trans secretary. Isn't that amazing? So we had that going for us, and the Democrats and the media, the Washington Post and Jim Acosta, they were all fine with that. They're all good with that. But it turned out he had been there many times, a number of times. Patrick Wohan served as Democrat mayor of College Park, Maryland. The New York Times and the Washington Post can go on and never mention that he's a Democrat, because why would they do that? But Patrick Wohan, hey, and then there's Patrick Wohan on the south lawn of the White House. And is he, he's like pretending to have breast disease or something, and he's got a hairy breast disease, and that was all okay on the south lawn of the White House, the Democrats. And the porta potties, that's all good on the south lawn of the White House for the Democrats as well. Isn't that amazing? Yes, sir. Your Democrat Party, that's all right at the White House and on the south lawn. And Suzanne Malveaux with the $376 million renovation under Barack Obama. And nobody can point to anything that was done with the $376 million taxpayer dollars, not private money, but taxpayer dollars. Isn't that amazing? These people. Yes, sir. By the way, Patrick Wohan wasn't the only Democrat mayor from Maryland who was arrested on child porn charges. There were two Democrat mayors from Maryland alone, that were arrested on child porn charges. Isn't that fine? Joel Bierman, former mayor of University Park in Prince George's County, not to be confused with the other Democrat, Patrick Wohan, who was the Democrat mayor of College Park. It was College Park and University Park, and they both got jobs in education because they like the little children. And that's all okay. And then here they are, at least one of them, at the White House again and again with a cabinet secretary, a special guest of the president of the United States. And that's but building a ballroom, that's too much. That's a bridge too far, isn't it? Isn't that crazy? Your Democrat Party, they are not normal. They're not well. These people, not good people. And then there's Hitler. You know, the Democrats love to call everybody Hitler and then attack the Jews. Kind of strange, but they do that. All right, let's see. Let's go back to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Jay. Jay, who's listening on Al Gore's amazing internet. Peace be upon him. And he is near Bayonne, New Jersey. Jay, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah. Hey, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, Jay.
The Democrats, they cannot stand the fact that President Trump is making the White House beautiful. And that just brings to, the forefront how much they want to demoralize and break America's will, because the way you do that and the way you destroy American society is to go on the warpath against anything beautiful. And the Democrats hate beauty because that brings out American exceptionalism, which is exactly what they want to fight against.
Yes, it is. That's absolutely what they're not on our side. Have you noticed that, Jay?
100%. We noticed that a long time ago when they're siding with Trendiwagwa against, American citizens. And now, you have Ruben Gallego from Arizona, the senator over there. And his father was a drug dealer. And he spoke about it in his campaign, how he's going to learn from his father's mistakes. But now he's defending the drug dealers and, advocating for them to be able to bring their drugs to American soil. So,
to kill Americans.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I think he learned more from his father to be like him than to be not like him.
Probably true. Jay, you're 100% right. And, if all Americans were more like you, we'd be much better off. That's Jay from Bayonne. We'll be right back. Now, the Democrat Party is nothing if not destructive. Cite the first American Civil War, creating the KKK, Jim Crow. They're racist, too. The riots of, name a bunch of riots. 1968, last week. Yesterday, the Democrats riot. They attack the police. They burn. They loot. They plunder. All Democrats all the time. And Eric Swalwell, Eric Swalwell is the Chinese agent who serves in the United States Congress from California. Eric Swalwell with his Chinese agent girlfriend, his controller, Fang Fang, right? Swalwell mocked for demanding 2028 Democrats pledge to demolish Trump's ballroom. They're the Taliban. They're fascists. They're Nazis. They hate the Jews. They're racists. They're amazing. Swalwell also suggested renaming it after Barack Obama as an alternative to destruction. Well, that's pretty destructive, I've got to say, just naming it for Obama. Why would you name it for Obama? I read you the story the other day. President Trump offered in, 2008 to build a ballroom and made the offer to Barack Obama and the Obama people, and they told him to, kind of like Jim Acosta, to go beep himself. They told him to shove off. But Trump had offered to build a ballroom to Obama, and they, they're just not on the side of progress. They're not on the side of, but they're on the side of destroying everything, right? And when President Trump made this offer as a private citizen to Obama, they became very angry, because they're mental. They're mentally ill. They crave violence and murder, and they love assassins and assassination. That's today's Democrat Party. And NPR on the taxpayer teat, they're in the same place as well. But isn't this amazing? So I looked at this story, and it's kind of an amazing story, with Eric Swalwell, the Democrat from California, was mocked for demanding that any 2028 Democratic presidential candidate pledge to demolish President Donald Trump's ballroom. What kind of a Nazi, fascist, Taliban crossdresser would make a suggestion like that? Oh, maybe one that's controlled by the Chinese Communist government and his honeypot Fang Fang. That could be it. He says, here's what Democrat congressman, a member of Congress, said. He wrote on X, which used to be called Twitter, said, don't even think of seeking a Democratic nomination for president unless you pledge to take a wrecking ball to the Trump ballroom on day one. That's what he tweeted, and he made day one in all capital letters because he's mentally ill. And then another Democrat has weighed in named Ruben Gallego. Senator Gallego suggests renaming the Trump ballroom, you'll never guess after who, after Obama, quote, to really mess with, end quote, that's the quotation marks, to really mess with President Trump. Now, you rename it after Obama. Again, President Trump offered to build it at the White House before he even entered politics. And Barack Obama, the arrogant communist jihadi, they scoffed. The people in the Obama White House scoffed at him, said would never do any such thing. Now, with that in mind, the Democrats are the Taliban, and they want to destroy the world, at least inside the United States. They can have illegal aliens do the demolition. What do you think? Now, it gets a little crazier because day before yesterday, too much stuff yesterday, on Meet the Press on NBC Fake News, they had a fake journalist named Kristen Welker, and she was hosting the television show on Sunday. And she's talking to this radical, this left-wing, terrible, awful Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego. And the headline there is, Democrat Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego trolled President Trump on Sunday over a new White House ballroom, suggesting Democrats rename it after President Barack Obama or Pol Pot, maybe after Pol Pot, when they're back in power. You guys should be dissolved as a political party. You should never be in power in the United States ever again. Gallego asked on NBC News Meet the Press whether his party should tear down the ballroom. And look, he didn't even bring it up. NBC brought it up. The anchor person brought it up and said, oh, don't you think any Democrat should tear down the ballroom because we're fascist, Taliban, demented, firebombing anti-Semites? I'm paraphrasing the question. And isn't that amazing? So his party should tear down the ballroom. And here it goes. Ruben Gallego. And they're a hate cult. They're violent. They're murderous. They love assassins and assassinations. They love firebombings. They hate the Jewish people. And here is Kristen Welker, Meet the Press, Sunday, day before yesterday, and Democrat Senator, believe it or not, Ruben Gallego.
I do want to ask you about the destruction of the East Wing of the White House. It was demolished to make space, of course, for President Trump's ballroom. Former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh said any Democrat running for president in 2028 must pledge to immediately tear down, bulldoze, demolish Trump's ballroom and fully restore the East Wing. Is that overstated, or would you agree with that?
No, I think to really mess with him, just name it the Barack Obama Ballroom, and I think that'll take care of half the problem.
So don't tear it down. Don't
more importantly, this is a distraction.
This is a they always think it's a distraction. Now, another headline, Democrats plot revenge for Trump's $300 million ballroom. That's the headline at the radical left-wing Daily Beast. They're like the Charlie Hebdo of her. Oh, they're not the Charlie Hebdo. Michael, why would you say that? That's crazy. Democrats plot revenge. What was the offense that would require revenge? These people are the third world. I've been talking about them in the appropriate context of them being the third world and ushering in the era of third worldness to the United States of America, because the left brings with them, wherever they go, the third world. And now the Democrat Party is the left. The Daily Beast, left-wing extremists, they type, Democrats are floating ways to get back at President Donald Trump over his tacky new ballroom. Now, the ground hasn't even been broken yet, and it's a tacky new ballroom. You guys should firebomb it, which is what you normally do. You can just burn the White House to the ground like the British in 1814, you fascists. NBC's Meet the Press asked Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego for his opinion on former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh's call for Democrats to immediately undo Trump's $300 million ballroom. And isn't that amazing? This actually says $300 ballroom because the Daily Beast people are stupid. They're not reporters. They're low IQ people. Trump's $300 ballroom and restore the newly demolished East Wing when they return to power. And this Trump-hating former Republican, Joe Walsh, not the one who did the nice music and, my Maserati does 185. I lost my license, now I don't drive. It's a different Joe Walsh, not the fun one. When I lived in Santa Barbara, Joe Walsh, the musician, lived in Santa Barbara, and he had a nice sailing yacht in the harbor there in Santa Barbara. And his beautiful sailing yacht was called So What? So What? That's one of his albums, So What? Great stuff. And he called his yacht So What? Probably used some of the money from the album to buy his sailing boat. Very nice, very nice. And everybody liked him. That Joe Walsh, not this Joe Walsh. But isn't it great? I will repeat this every single day for the next 3 years. Any Democrat running for president in 2028 must pledge to immediately tear down, bulldoze, demolish Trump's ballroom and fully restore the East Wing and any other piece of the People's House. That's he says it like a communist, the People's House. That Trump has or will destroy, the vocal Trump critic and recent Democrat said on X. Critics remain critical. I've always found that to be true in the news media. That's why they call them critics, because they're critical. We know how that works. All right, so we've got, what do we still have? We've got Governor Pritzker. He's a Democrat. He's a lunatic. He's very unwell. Let's get to that, because the Hitler, we've got time for that. Let's go to that. Let's go to soundbite number one. J.B. Pritzker, he inherited billions from his forebears, never earned a penny himself, but he just won $1.4 million from the mafia playing poker in Las Vegas. That'll come back to bite him in his oversized buttocks. J.B. Pritzker with Nicole Wallace, who is another bitter former Republican with some kind of a mental problem.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't
that
think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics. I mean, the most brutal critiques have come from people that have seen him far more closely than you or I combined. You or I combined haven't seen him very closely. Isn't that amazing?
when he's a governor, and he's at war with the federal government, just like the Confederates during the American Civil War, which the Democrat Party started. Pritzker, no, I never compared him to Hitler. No Democrat. And then Nicole Wallace, no Democrat has ever called him or compared him to Hitler.
No, I do not want this country to become like other authoritarian regimes. People have criticized me for talking about the Nazi regime. On the right, people have criticized me. It's the one I know most about because I helped to build a Holocaust museum, and I can tell you, sitting next to Holocaust survivors, this is what happened. People's rights started getting taken away. People were accused of being immigrants, and then laws were passed to limit immigrants, and then people who weren't actually immigrants were called immigrants, and then it was othering people, and that led to a lot worse things. What I'm saying is that this is how authoritarian regimes do it.
And this is what Trump is doing. I'm not saying he's Hitler. I'm just saying that this is what Hitler did, and this is what Trump is doing, and is saying that people that live here that are regular citizens are immigrants, which hasn't happened. I'm not even sure that happened in Nazi Germany, but it hasn't happened here, so they make things up. He's just comparing him to Hitler by comparing him to Hitler. But no Democrat, according to Nicole Wallace, has ever called him Hitler. Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, very, very low IQ Jasmine Crockett.
They understand that we have a Timu Hitler in the White House right now that thinks that he is going to become the dictator of the United States.
That's right. He's Timu Hitler. It's a cheap online website where you can buy things inexpensively. It's like a Kmart Hitler. So he's a Timu Hitler. And that is Jasmine Crockett. Chris Matthews. And back to Jim Acosta, who wanted to tell everybody to beep off. They are Democrats.
What did Hitler do in the Holocaust? He took people from Germany to other countries.
Yeah.
Where there was no German law. There was not even a pretense of German law. They took them to Poland or, Hungary or whatever, and they killed them.
They had conquered Poland and Hungary, you moron. So they were part of Greater Germania because that's what they were doing. Isn't that amazing? And Joe Scarborough, he's a big-time anchor on NBC Fake News.
Outside of Hitler, I can't think of too many other leaders throughout history who have actually turned their mobs or turned their troops against their own government.
Ah, yes, turn their mobs and turn their troops against their own government. None of this has happened, but, he's talking about January 6th, isn't he?